Okay, just a couple questions. Just tell me a little bit about the history of this church and how it came to be.
Right. So I am fairly new to the church, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't know all of the history, um, but I know we were established. We're coming up on our 150th year in a couple
Wow.
years, and so we were established fairly soon after Huntington itself was established.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest part of the history for me that I see is the building that we're in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which was built in the sanctuary was built in 1919.
Wow.
What I find interesting about that is there was a building boom for church sanctuaries
Mm-hmm.
from the end of World War One to the beginning of the Great Depression. And obviously, once the Depression starts, churches didn't build buildings until about the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 50s and 60s and ever since, you tend to see church architecture where the buildings look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can look at a church and say, that was probably built in the 50s. You can look at
Yeah.
church, that was probably built in the 70s. But you really can't do that for churches, in my experience at least, they were built in the 20s because each of them has a unique style.
Yeah.
So our church has that, and so that's been neat for me to watch. You got those big columns, and you got all these
Yes.
churches on Fifth Avenue that were probably built around the same time.
Yeah.
And each of them have their own distinct feel.
Yeah. Let's see. Could you just tell me kind of what the role of the church is in the community or what it's done in the past, the present?
Right. So the church has been very, very active in the community in terms of kind of physical contributions, in terms of starting churches, food pantry support of local ministries.
Mm-hmm.
The church has historically had a lot of people who are in larger positions of leadership in the city and in the state, and so has supported that and been a part of a lot of the decision making stuff in the life of the community, and hopefully just participating with other churches. Hopefully we've done that well.
Yeah.
I think we have.
Yeah. Are there any parts of the church that are really special to you guys? Any historical significance or just something that you really love about this church that's different?
Well, again, that sense of 1920s kind of architecture, that's been neat for us. My wife and I first served at a church in Sanford, North Carolina, whose sanctuary was built in the same era. And it's just kind of cool to see that. We were just back at that church Sunday for their homecoming. But I think the church's sense of commitment over time, generation to generation, lots of multiple generation families are here in the church, and that's been kind of neat to see.
Do you have any memorable church stories while you've been here? Are there anything that really stuck out over time?
Wow, let's see. And again, we've been here 2 years. What are some of the most memorable stories that have occurred? I assume you mean funny stories.
Yeah, funny stories, memorable stories. Yeah.
Oh my. You've stumped me. I can't think. There's not a funny one that
Mm-hmm.
comes off the top of my head, even though I'm sure they've happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a couple of things that have been very meaningful for the congregation and for me and my wife, who's also associate pastor. Our former pastor had to resign early because of health reasons.
Mm.
And so we were able to have him back in October to preach.
Oh, wow.
That was a really powerful moment. It's the first time he'd preached since he had resigned. And then we've been able to be a part of several, and I've been able to be a part of several ministries in town that specifically work with people that are homeless or who are struggling with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to, over time, get to know people, get to know their stories, and to pray for them consistently has been a really powerful thing for me.
Oh, cool. All right, I think that's it. If there's anything you'd like to...
I wish you well with your project.